Hello once again, my comic collecting friends. It's Matt, Comic Order 410, here this afternoon to do my late entry to my friend Vincru12000's 450 subs contest. And first off, excuse my voice. I'm fighting off a cold here. I'm like Wheezy Jefferson. Excuse me. But Mike is a good friend of mine. I think the world of this guy, him and his wife are both good souls, and I think that's why he gets blessed with so many ridiculously good deals on comics. He's always doing trades with people here in the community, and I communicate with Mike a lot, and he stays on top of what's going on. I get a lot of good heads up and a lot of good information from him, and I definitely appreciate it. I'm sure you're subbed to Mike. If not, there'll be a link below. Congratulations to you, my friend Vincru. You deserve many more subs, and I'm sure you'll get them. And thank you for giving away some of your great books. These books don't really mean anything except for this one in the middle here. I just put up some random books so you're not looking at nothing while I talk. But this Sergio Aragonis on Parade is one of the books Mike traded me. And like I said, he didn't have a double, but he knows I'm a big Sergio Aragonis fan, so he just gave it to me. And I thought that was cool. But let's get started here. His first question was, what are some things that you think will happen in the comic industry coming up? You don't need to be Nostradamus to figure out that Image will continue to put out creator-owned #1s. And you don't need to be Nostradamus to know that Marvel will continue to do constant reboots and constant quote-unquote big event / crossovers. But one thing that I actually have a wager dating back a few years with a friend. When DC started the New 52, Dan DiDio made a comment that they would not switch back to their original numbering. And right away, I said, bullshit. I said, you watch. I told my friend we made a little wager, and even he thinks he might lose. I said, when the time comes that Action Comics and Detective are getting around the 1,000-issue mark, they will definitely switch back to their original numbering. I could be wrong, but I will not be surprised when it happens. So, second question, is there a bubble in the industry? I definitely believe there is, and I've often compared it, like Mike did, to the bubble that was in the industry in the 90s when you had books like McFarlane's Spider-Man #1 and X-Men #1 by Jim Lee breaking the 1 million copies mark. I mean, hell, I think with all those different cards, X-Force #1, they printed 5 or 6 million copies of that book. The bubble that we're in now is a completely different animal because you have the internet in the equation, and the movie hype and TV hype is really, I think, what's pushing a lot of this bubble in many people's minds. But you don't know if it's going to burst or when, because like I said, it's a completely different animal. You have a lot more people involved in the hobby. You have faster communication of information and instant prices, you know, when you get sales on eBay. And as long as Hollywood keeps backing the comic industry through TV and film, I think we're going to see a lot of attention on a lot of these books. I do think eventually there will be, you know, bubbles burst eventually. That's what they do. They grow and grow till they burst. I'm glad about a lot of things regarding this bubble, and there's some things I don't like. I don't like when some of the, you know, prices get out of hand because of the movie hype around a book that I'm trying to collect the series, you know, like Deadpool, for instance. I'm glad I've got most of the Deadpools that I wanted, because I would not pay what people want for New Mutants 98 right now. But on the other hand, I really like that this has brought a lot of attention and people into the hobby, and it's bigger than ever. So, to me, more people buying and reading comics is a good thing, unless it makes, you know, some prices on books just unreasonable, which has happened. You know, I love Howard the Duck, but you're not going to catch me paying $1,000 for a Howard the Duck #1 9.8. It will not happen. There's, as much as I like Howard and Steve Gerber, there's much better books in my mind that I'd rather spend $1,000 on. And I already have a very fine plus near mint Howard #1. But yes, I do think there's a bubble. It's hard to say what's going to happen. It's a completely different situation than it was in the 90s. Number 3, my suggestion to Marvel, DC, and Image to improve things for their readers. I think Image is doing what's good for them, but I agree they're putting out way too many number ones instead of, they are establishing, like, they're doing Outcast and some other stuff, and they're trying to establish more ongoings. And I think that's what they could do, establish more solid, long-running titles. I think they were very smart. Image was very smart to give Robert Kirkman whatever he wanted to keep him and Walking Dead on their imprint, because that's what saved them while they started making this new haven for creator-owned material. DC and Marvel both need to stop with the big events, big crossovers. One per year is enough. They're both guilty of that. Marvel needs to stop rebooting books at number 1 constantly. Both Marvel and DC need to stop changing creative teams so frequently, yet they keep, they finally got rid of Humberto Ramos, but how long was he on Spider-Man? Meanwhile, every other book they change a creative team every 6 issues, but glad to see Oliver Coipel on Spidey, but same thing with the big crossovers, the big events. They don't need gimmicks to sell Spidey books. He has a great rogues gallery. Just stop with the crap gimmicks and crap, overly thought out, overlapping storylines for Spidey, and get back to basics and write good stories, because he's a great hero. Peter Parker's a great character, and he has the best rogues gallery in all of Marvel, in my opinion. 4th question was, if you had an artist to do a portrait that would be the only existing portrait of you. I agree Alex Ross would probably be the best choice if you wanted people to see what you look like. His art is just so photorealistic. But I would love to see Robert Crumb do a portrait of me, not just because he's Robert Crumb. The portraits I've seen him do of people are just brilliant. They're hyper detailed yet sort of cartoony, but somehow still somewhat realistic and spot on. There was this Frank Zappa when he did, and being from Baltimore, I tried to get in on the bidding, but it just got out of hand. But the way he renders people is pretty amazing, in my opinion. So those would be my 2 choices. Last question, he gave a couple choices and wanted to know what books you would pick. First is Showcase 4 or Fantastic Four #1. That's a hard one. I like the Fantastic Four, but there's a lot of Marvel properties that I'm more of a fan of. I realize its importance in Marvel, but I'd probably rather have Showcase 4. Batman #1 or Amazing Spider-Man #1. This is ultra hard because they're probably my 2 favorite characters in all of comics. And that's really tough, but that's the toughest one, Mike. I'd probably have to go with Batman #1, though. New Mutants 98 and Batman Harley Quinn one-shot. Thankfully, I have them both. I paid a lot, paid like $80 for my Batman Harley one-shot, but I got my New Mutants cover price. If I was picking one to have now, and they were both the same grade and the same price, I'd probably go with New Mutants 98, because it goes for 4 or 5 times what that Batman Harley Quinn does. Last but not least, Walking Dead #1 or TMNT #1. No doubt I'd want a first print of Turtles. That's a book that's, it's on my grail list. It's the only, I'm missing a couple later issues, but if I get first print of Turtles #1, I have like 1 through 30 something. And it's just a book that constantly goes up and up and up. And it's outrageously expensive. As much as Walking Dead #1 is worth, I've actually seen it cooling off a little bit in the past couple months. And if you look at the prices, again, if they're the same grade and the same price, if you look at the prices of those books, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1's worth almost twice as much as Walking Dead #1 in the same grade. So, I definitely want Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1 because I'm the bigger fan, but if I was a fan of both, I'd say, give me the Turtles, because I can save up the $1,600 to buy a Walking Dead #1, but I'm not going to save up the $3,000 to $3,500 to buy that Turtles #1. That book is insanely expensive, and it's one of my personal grails in the comic collecting hobby. So hopefully one day I'll find it. Doesn't have to be a near mint copy, and may just have to settle for the second print, which is also not very cheap. But thank you, Mike. Some of these questions I really had to think about. Pretty interesting scenarios here. And again, I definitely appreciate you doing this, my friend. Good luck to everyone in the contest. Thanks again, Mike, for doing it. And thank you all for stopping by. I always appreciate it. Everyone take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and enjoy your comic books.